Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are, everyone. Welcome to episode number 5 of Living on Borrowed Crime, talking with true crime content creators. I'm very happy today to have on Mr. Black, aka The Disturbing Truth. Thank you so much for joining me today, Mr. Black.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate the chance to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, and just as a note for those of you that are coming in, it's been one of those days. Dave's Lemonade, unfortunately, is ill, and Stay Awake had a prior commitment that kind of ran into the scheduling of things. So all best wishes to Dave that he feels better soon, and Stay Awake. Hope he has a good day. Before I get into things too deeply, first and foremost, thank you so much. If it'll come up here, thank you, Derek LaRue, so much for your continued generosity and support. I really, really do appreciate it. Hope you're having a good day. And Keeverdam, thank you so much for the happy, smiley dog cat fox. I hope you'll forgive me if I don't play a dog cat fox, because this is a different kind of show than the usual streams. But Mr. Black, I got to tell you, I'm so excited to talk to you. I've been a fan of yours since the Richard Huckle video dropped, I think about like late 2021.
Yeah, that's right. That was a big case.
It really was. And so I hope you'll forgive me with my starry-eyed fanboyish here, but the quality of your production and the editing and the visuals and the musical choices and everything. Do you have a background in video or film production or something that backs that up?
I do now, I guess.
This is all self-taught.
Yeah, it's all self-taught. I mean, like, what is self-taught nowadays? You have YouTube, you have Udemy or Udemy, whatever you want to call it. There's so many ways to further your expertise or just start something new. So I think for myself, because my background on YouTube at least was in creepypasta creation and narration, to the point of almost like at an audio drama level. It was a good segue into video. At some point, I was going to have to learn how to put a video together, and that started with Vegas. And then when I got the idea for The Disturbing Truth, I moved over to DaVinci Resolve, and it's just been, I feel like it makes it easy, if you're willing to put in the time. I feel like it's easy outside of that.
Now, your creepypasta channel started in 2016, which is around the time that I started mine as well. And so you've been doing this for quite a while in one way, shape, or form. What caused you to move from sort of fictional terrible things to real terrible things?
I guess, yeah, that's a really good question. I do have an answer. I suppose at some point I always knew I wanted to get into true crime. I suppose I knew that's where I was going to go. But at the time when I was younger, especially, in the sense of YouTube, I thought that I could do fiction and true crime. I thought, kind of in my naive mind, I thought, why doesn't Stephen King do fiction and true crime? Why doesn't all these authors of darkness? Why don't they do something in true crime as well? And then when I did my first true crime case, which was Samantha Koenig and Israel Keys, I realized why. Because I put it out on the Mr. Black Pasta Creepypasta channel, and it didn't get a good response. People were expecting something that would entertain them on the dark side, not something that was just dark. They were there to be entertained, and a lot of people had bones with being entertained by true crime on that channel. So I put a couple more out. I think maybe the Rat Man of Japan and the Daniel Petrie Gabriel Kuhn case. And it was the same response, and they were only getting, 1,000 and a half views. So your maker said to me, "Hey man, start a new channel, give it a name, and run with that." And that worked, So.
Setting audience expectations and making sure you're feeding a niche with that niche is something that I've learned a lot about on YouTube as well. And just like, what do people expect to get from you? And they're expecting one thing. And if you start deviating, then they don't really know what to do with it.
That's true. Well, as well too, I think after doing, really I felt it after the first one, after the Samantha Koenig case. But then when it got to the third one, I realized fairly quickly that not only could I not host true crime on the Mr. Black Pasta Creepypasta channel, but I also wasn't going to be able to continue to write fiction in the style that I do while also doing true crime. So I was right. A lot of the creepypastas I would write, I've got one called The Line. It's like basically a big audio drama, but it's pretty rough, you know. But it was rooted in things that could happen, reality,
Hmm.
psychological thriller, psychological horror. And I never want to draw from something true crime that actually happened to somebody with real victims. I never want to draw from that and bring that into fiction. I never want to have that even accident. So
Yeah.
I just stopped. I just stopped doing the fiction stuff. Maybe it'll come. Maybe I'll do a little more whenever I can think of more monstery type of stuff. But
Yeah.
when it's like, if I'm gonna tell a story about a wife that's been abused and that's fiction, I'm just not so sure that I wouldn't draw off of something that I'm covering, and that just wouldn't be right. And for me personally.
Just a note, everybody, links to all of Mr. Black's, at least all that I could find, his Patreon, his channels, his Twitter, everything is in the description below if you haven't already taken a look at his stuff. Yeah, I've had a similar experience with the content that I do in that before I started doing YouTube, I'd watch all these different creators about different things. Once I started making my own content, I kind of stopped for the most part watching those same people because I didn't want to have their opinions or ideas or anything cross over into my stuff, and I'd have to question how legitimate is my opinion versus this. But when you're talking about crossing over from fiction to having to face reality, that's got to be a completely different kind of experience.
Well, it's funny you say that because I think I experienced the same thing. I had this kind of this feeling that I mean, I always watched true crime, but then once I
Mhm.
started covering it, I had to stop watching my favorites. I
Yeah.
definitely had to stop watching my favorites because yeah, and everybody sort of a lot of us cover the same cases, and that's not by choice most of the time, you know. But yeah, you have to be careful, you know. I've had the accusations already of, "Oh, you're like this guy. You're like that channel," and it's like, well, I'm sorry, you know.
Well, the thing that has always struck me, and just for everybody's edification, I don't know what I'm doing when I'm interviewing people. Like, I come up with like one question that is tailored to the individual I'm talking to, and then everything else is by the seat of the pants. But there's one thing that I wanted to ask you since I started watching your stuff, and that is that your work is distinguished from a lot of other channels in that your presentation isn't, let's say, journalistically neutral or conversational in tone, but for lack of a better word, it's vengeful. And you've said that at the start of some of your older videos where it's like you take no prisoners, you show no mercy to the people involved in this, which is understandable given the types of stories you cover and the kind of unfiltered details you provide. As a viewer, I know for myself, there's a certain amount of catharsis and, I don't know, safety in that shared anger as you relay these stories. But I was wondering, is that also a catharsis for you as you're producing these things, or does it cause you more stress as you're having to wallow in this material video to video?
I think the catharsism, I guess, if that's a word, that might be a
Mhm.
religion. I'm not sure. I guess it's born when I deliver that. Okay, so I suppose like when it comes to those parts of my videos, you're looking at them and you're thinking, right? So what is this fake outrage? A lot of people could look at it and mistake it as fake outrage, and it's not fake.
Mhm.
It's real. I wrote these scripts. If you hear a part that, I'm talking like that, that's the part I put in. People know that my mother helps write some of the scripts and research some of the projects, but I always go in and edit it back to my own words, especially at those parts. So that's really what I felt and what I wanted to say. But it is scripted. So you are listening to me recite a script, but it's for me, it's no different than writing a speech. These are my true feelings. These are the way I feel about them. So at that point, when that breathes and sees new light, that is, yeah, that's a good release of stress. The stress comes researching a crime and not maybe knowing or not have you haven't seen that picture or you didn't know that detail and you get this, oh my God, why
Mhm.
to that, innocent person or that little girl, or a lot of the times now with kid stuff, like, because I have a 1-year-old, I'm relating a lot to him.
Yeah.
because I have a small child. So when it comes down to small child, which are nothing but innocent, yeah, that stress builds while writing that script. But when I get to that point in the script where I get to release, it does feel nice. And I never thought that it was going to be something that other people would draw off of either. I just thought
Yeah.
that that's how I feel, and this is my speech or my script or spiel, whatever. This is what I have to say.
Yeah, I know from now, you have no idea about this, of course, but I have attempted 3 now true crime videos just as an experiment, just as sort of a self-challenge, see if I could do it.
Oh, you should have
And
sent me one.
oh, well, I will do. I'll send you the best one that I have, which is what I'm going to
Okay.
reference here in a second afterwards.
All right.
But the the experience I had with especially my third one of my trilogy, um, getting all the articles together, creating a timeline, having to derive a script from that timeline of events. But then it took me like I'm amazed that you guys, as in true crime creators, create as frequently as you do, because
Well,
the
I
two
probably
oh
don't. Sorry to interrupt you there, but I
yeah.
I probably create a lot less than other people, and but I'm trying to improve that. But yeah, I
Well,
understand what you're saying.
yeah, but I mean, just as far as the complexity of the elements you're putting together visually, musically, the editing, the sound. This is something that I've only learned through my minor experience in it. Is just when I watch content now, having made my own to some degree, I sort of have a sense of how much work must have gone into that 3-second bit of just
Yes.
something. And so when I see one of your videos, I don't just see it as like, oh, it's a one-off. This took time and effort and the hours and the hours. But in my own experience, just having to wallow in the crimes of an individual and having to sort of just steel myself to have to work through this, and in my case, try to present it in a informative slash entertaining way. Um, is there any fallout from that for you, especially given the material that you've covered? And what I mean by that is, previously I've interviewed Dave's Lemonade and Stay Awake, and they mentioned how both of them have experienced like nightmares as a result of some of the stuff that they look into and spend time on. And like I said, given the intensity and, for lack of a better word, it seems underwhelming to say, the darkness of the kinds of things that you cover. Do you have any fallout from that? And what do you, and if so, or does it just roll off you? And if so, what do you do to try to, get on with the regular part of your life and not have it consume you?
Yeah, that's a great question. You it in some sense you kind of compartmentalize your invested time. So I invest a certain amount of time definitely in the studio. I'm in the office part of the studio now. Behind the camera is where the creation station basically. So all the stuff for Resolve instruments and stuff like that. But I have to make sure that I treat this like a job. This is my job.
Right.
I get up, I make it work. I make this work around my life in that sense. So for me, an 8 hour day is great. You know,
Hmm.
um, I get up maybe 7:30, 8 o'clock. I take my son for an hour or so. I kind of say I'll be in the studio from 9 till 10, and then Tom comes at 10. Tom's my assistant. He's been here 3 months now. So
Hmm.
Tom will come in at 10. And sometimes even Tom's like, he's fresh and he's just getting into this, so he's excited. So he'll be like, "Hey man, can I come tomorrow at 9 when you're here? I want to see how you're going to edit this part, and I want to learn that." And I'll be like, "Well, no, because that hour is mine. I need
Hmm.
that hour." And
Yeah.
that's for everybody. I need that hour to come in and like it's very hard to look at emails. I've got a lot of apps, notifications off on my phone, things like that. And still feel like I've spent too much time on my phone. And it very well looks like it because I'm writing scripts from the phone to the studio computer to the laptop in the house, and then maybe back to the phone again with Google Docs. So like, you could look at somebody on the phone typing up a script on Google Docs, and you could say, "Oh, he just sits on his phone," but I'm actually kind of working. So I have to be very careful about that. So I come here and I try to go home when I'm supposed to, but I normally take off Friday and Saturday, and I don't work at all. So because I have two avenues that I invest the time while I'm here, I feel all of the the stress and weight of doing these cases for me. For instance, this stuff here is like the toolbox killer, right?
Yes.
This is a new design setup we're doing on the Disturbing Truth, where we actually printed all these pictures out and cut them, and we go through this stuff and try and show it on the camera, as opposed to editing everything in Resolve. Why not try and shoot some stuff? So
Sure.
while I'm here, I invest all that energy and time into creating what I create. And then when I go home, I have to flip that switch, and I have to be a father, and I have to be with my wife. And don't get me wrong, I'm excited. I want to talk to my wife about this stuff, that, find new leads, and something
Mhm.
you're researching, or have you heard about this? But you have to try and shut that off too. That's very,
Now,
very
does
important.
does that professional distance between the work and life, does that risk desensitizing you to the material in some way? Or I mean, that's my first thought is just like, you just like, this is set aside and this is work, and then you have to move over to the other side of life. How is trying to strike that balance worked for you so far?
It has its struggles for sure, but fairly reasonably good. You know,
Okay.
for instance, because I'm 38, so
Mhm.
um, I'm a big boy, heading towards 40. But for me, since people know, since my family, my wife, her father, her mother, everybody in the family, they know that I work. I'm at work at let's say 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. or maybe 10 to 6 p.m. Right?
Mhm.
I might stay a couple hours later. I might stay an hour later when I need to, but that is the time that I work. So they know that. That's scheduled. I'm gonna be off on
Mhm.
Saturday. I'm gonna be
Right.
off on Sunday. For me to for me to have to, like, do something on a Saturday, like today, is like, that's rare. That's something
Mhm.
rare, because I'm normally with them. So that, I can't stress, especially if you're a new creator and you're starting into this. This is a tough this is a tough genre
Yeah.
of YouTube creation. I mean, if you're gonna invest emotion in it, and fine, look, some creators, they can detach and not invest emotion and treat it like, some kind of thriller or whatever. That's fine. That's not what I can do. So when
Mhm.
I cover these cases, I become, you know, Cindy Schaefer. This is my
Yeah.
cousin. In my head, by the end of this case, Cindy Schaefer is my cousin.
Mm.
Jacqueline Lamp is my cousin. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's almost like you know these people, and I've dealt with that with every case that I've covered. So, I have to find a way to leave that here, and the only way I can do that is to have my family's energy just cover me, and it does. It's great. I
That's
absolutely
it.
love having that switch.
I'm glad you have that support system for it. Miranda Stone, thank you so much. And Miranda's kind of reading my mind right now. Mr. Black, how did you first get your mom involved in writing scripts? A question I was going to ask you is, up until relatively recently, and you just mentioned your editor, you were a one man shop. What was the process in bringing in other people, and has there been any kind of letting go of control issues in some instances for you in that process? And thank you, Miranda Stone.
Okay. My mom got involved because, so my mom's from Arkansas, where I'm from. I'm currently in Latvia. Latvia
Yeah.
is, for a lot of people that don't know, it's not in Louisiana. Okay. Um, uh, or Indiana. Um, Latvia it used to be part of Russia, part of the Soviet Union, but it's its own
Yep.
country, and it's in the EU. So we are, um, we're safe and all that kind of good stuff. But we're quite far away. But a good way to keep my mom kind of going while I'm so far across the world is to get her involved with this. And my mother had she got a college master's in English, so she's
Mm.
she's a lot smarter than I am. But because she had to take care of me, she had me when she was around 20. She had to take care of me.
Okay.
So she ended up going to college at Arkansas State University for getting her master's. But then after that, all she did was basically, for a long time, she drove for Domino's. Um, then after that, she was a secretary for a little while. And what I remember the most is my mom on a job site doing construction work with the men, even building our own
Mm.
house. So she never got to use that master's, but she paid for it for years. So when it
Sure.
came to this, I thought, geez, I need help writing scripts. I can't write them fast enough. And I still write them, but I just can't write quick enough to keep up with the content I want to create, Um, so I got her involved, and this was great. She finally got to use her master's, and she's good with the research. I mean, we're in the middle of starting our coverage on the West Memphis 3 with Damian Eccles and that crew,
Oh,
because
wow. Yeah.
that's 40 miles from her house,
Hmm.
So she's going out there with a drone, with a camera, getting videos, pictures of everything she can,
Nice.
and things like this, and helping write the script, and contending my opinions on cases. Those are things that really help me. She's the person that does that, so it's great to have her in, and she's also quite, not to bury it in this, my mom doesn't have a victim mindset at all, or complex at all, but she was quite badly a victim in her youth, and even later on, and she's just fought so much off to still be here and be thriving the way she is and smiling. She's really come a long way, so it's a pleasure to have her on my team. Shout out to Nana
Yeah.
Black.
Nana Black, yeah, and also I'm glad watching your most recent video and hearing about her medical chicanery,
Yeah.
let's say, that really hit home for me because my parents are in a similar age bracket and health concerns are constant. What's it been like having an assistant editor on the process? Because honestly, like I said, the quality of your production always stood out to me. It looked like something that I'd be watching on, and I hope this isn't an insult, like Netflix or something, or
No, not at all. It's
just the
flattering.
Discovery Channel or something like that. And has there been any? Sounds like Tom is his name. Sounds like he's been very enthusiastic to help out. Has there been any even friendly stress in giving up some control or what's the word I'm looking for? Delegating. That's what I'm looking for. Delegating some of the responsibilities from your previous one-man shop.
Well, Tom, Tom, I call him Tom Arrow, because if you put it together, it's tomorrow.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, Tom, Tom came along because I had two Canon T5i Rebels, I think they were, or T7is, whatever they were. I had two cameras I wanted to sell, and I got a new one, and Tom was thinking about getting into something like that, and I bumped into him in this small village, and I said, "Hey, you looking for two cameras, really cheap? Got a couple attachments with them and all." And he came over and he was like, "Yeah, I'll take them." And then he got to look at the studio here, the office, and he was like, "Man, I'd love to be involved in something like this." And I went, "Can you
Mm.
edit video?" And he says, "No, not yet." And I went, "You want to learn?" And he was like,
Mm.
"Yeah, I would love to." And I was like, "Right, then let's do this." So Tom started coming over, put him on a schedule, 10 to 5. Tom stays well past 7 sometimes on his own merit. His father actually just helped us put this set together. So I had a vision that I wanted to put together to start shooting things using a desk, take the face away from this persona. That's what this is about. Like, why is it? Because it's not, for me, this is not about skin color. It's not about politics. Politics. It's not about having a face. It's just a voice for the voiceless. So that's what I want to do. So for me, it wasn't hard to let Tom in, because Tom wasn't looking for any control. Tom just wanted to learn
Hmm.
everything I knew, and he has done
Right.
so good. He edited pretty much all of the Lisa Edwards video, because I was in London. So I recorded the vocals, I did the intro, maybe came back then after a week and did a few more bits and pieces, and was just kind of blown away how well Tom did, even with the subtitles and all. He's great. So
Well,
that has been
yeah.
nothing but an asset to the Disturbing Truth. Really has.
Yeah, I can imagine that's got to be quite a relief and take a lot of pressure off to have a sorcerer's apprentice who's sort of
Yeah,
been
in studio.
yeah, in
Not
studio. Yeah,
someone that you're having to communicate with on Fiverr, Upwork, or some other
right.
YouTuber. This is a guy who's here. This is a guy who's, and it's not part of his job, and I don't require it ever. But this is a guy who says, "Hey, you want a coffee?" and gets up and makes a coffee. You know what I mean? Like I'm not asking for that.
Yeah,
I treat Tom as an equal.
yeah,
We've gone through this Toolbox Killers, video, and just sat down as equals and edited
yeah.
it together. And he shot all the. I don't know if you've seen the Scream for Me trailer, but we shot that here at the Black Gloves, um, on this desk. That was Tom's first shoot. Tom also will be starring in a reenactment in that as well coming out. So we hope to have that done already, but it's just been a stressful week
Yeah. Well,
getting this place ready. So
yeah, not to get too fanboy. So is this technically the unofficial premiere of this set and your outfit and everything?
this is absolutely that.
Oh my, oh boy, oh boy.
This is
Notch
absolutely
on
that.
my bedpost, so to speak. Different subject, a little bit now. And correct me if I'm wrong, but for at least for a time, or at least in a couple instances, some of your content was cross-posted over on Law and Crime YouTube channel. Is that correct?
It still is, yeah. Everything I make. As a matter of fact, I don't think I've done a big announcement anywhere outside of my Discord for this, but I sold my channel mostly to Law and Crime.
Okay.
I still am in certain ways, but also I get funded directly by them to create these things now. So that's why there was a lot of stillness and quietness on the Disturbing Truth at the early start of the year, because
Yeah.
it was like, right now it's not just an agreement with Law and Crime where they're cross posting or syndicating, I guess, my material. Now I'm a part of Law and Crime. So and they've been really good. They haven't taken any of my creativity. They haven't taken away any of my personality. Everything you see here has been my idea. As a matter
Yeah.
of fact, the president, Andrew, when I told him my idea for this and how I wanted Mr. Black to look, he just looked kind of, this was like, right. And I could just tell he was thinking, is this a kink thing? And I was like,
Well,
no,
now,
it's not going to be a mask like that. It's just to take away the face, take away that, just leave it
yeah.
in the Disturbing Truth.
I can
you know?
empathize with that. Like, part of my reason for continuing to use an avatar rather than my face is that my sort of internal philosophy is focus on the point and not the person, more or less. Is
Yeah.
that it's not necessarily trying to make it a cult of personality kind of thing. Now, maybe it's just me, but that seems like such a rare event that a relatively, at least at the time that I started seeing this cross posting, a relatively young true crime channel would end up with an opportunity like that. Can you talk about how that came about, or what connections you made that happen so relatively early in your career?
Yeah, it was actually it was a pretty crazy time of turmoil. Um, w- we were here. This studio and office are in a building that when I moved to Latvia into this village was completely empty, and it had been empty for, I guess, around 30 years since shortly after the collapse of the Soviet Union. This building had been empty, and it's got I think it's got 72 kind of like small apartments in it. But
Mm-hmm.
it used to be like a prison halfway house kind of thing. And now it's just been empty. But our apartment's right across the street. And I got here and I kept staring across at this building, and I kept going, I need a studio. I had one in Ireland when I lived there with Mrs. Black, and we moved back here so we could have kids and have family around and all. So I said, I need a studio. And I kept saying to her, what's going on with that building over there? That old, it looks like something out of Chernobyl. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
that's what it looks like. 100%. Same architecture. And she was like, oh, well, that specific room that you're talking about with the entrance to the road, that used to be a bakery. And I was like, right, I would love to see that. And she's like, nah, that thing's gonna just tumble. There's no one there. No one's gonna buy it. They're never gonna do anything with it. And I was like, all right, okay, man can dream. Then one night I was walking the dog and there were lights on in it and people were working. Somehow got the number of the owner of the building, called him, talked to him, and made a good deal very early on this room. And then shortly after I bought this room, the housing market doubled or tripled, and I was just like so lucky that I got in at the time that I did.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't actually know how I got off on that topic, but that's why the studio was here and how it came about.
Oh, I was wondering how you made the connection to end up with Law and Crime.
With Law and Crime. Yeah. So right in the middle of that time, I just finished. I was just in here in January. I just like officially came in January. Big karaoke party with some friends. And that was the opening of the studio. No more parties from then on out. It was just straight up work. So I was trying to figure out a way that all my yellow lit videos could earn, I could earn some value, some tinder for the time that I was putting into these cases, because it's a lot of work. It's not a 3-hour a day job. It's much more than that. And at the time, we didn't have a son. So, I would work 16 hours if I need to. But I knew that wasn't going to last. I needed a way to earn to continue to do this so I could continue to do what I think does good in the world, this kind of information. And then if I get the chance to fight for a victim or sometimes I'll donate to help a victim's family or something. I don't make a big thing about that. That's not what it's about.
Right.
I rarely ever say anything about it because that's not the point. But if I can earn more with this channel, I can do more of that stuff. So I started with looking up sponsorships. A girl in my Discord named M, who runs my Discord, she was like, here's a list of companies that sponsor true crime channels, since YouTube's yellowing all your ads, which means most of the time you pretty much don't make anything from them. It's not red, but it isn't green, and it's way less money. So
yeah, I'm well aware.
Yeah. So, and it could be for anything, you could say something, you could mispronounce something, and then suddenly, you lose your ad. So I needed a way to continue to do this and use what I'm doing to help people. So I started with the sponsorships at the recommendation of M, and that worked really well. But after doing a few of them, I realized how hard it is to just continue to do that. So I was sitting there going, I guess this is how I'll have to do it. I'll have to do a couple of these a month and just step up my game with production and hope I find an assistant sometime. And then lo and behold, I get an email from Law&Crime that I think is not real. Or it's like one of these, give us 10 of your videos at Jelly Smack and we'll give you $450, one of those kind of things.
Yeah.
So I replied thinking, right, okay, we'll see. My wife was due in 2 months. So I was like, well, let's see what happens. I had a conversation with the guys. Skype, met the owner and president, and they started syndicating my material. And when the first paycheck rolled around, I was pleasantly surprised, and I was able to start to actually put this studio together with a vision that I see, and start to get myself assets to help make the productions even better. So yeah, it was a godsend to have Law&Crime step in. And as I say, I was deeply worried even when selling them the rights to the channel and coming on as a part of the team. I was very scared that they would take away the personality, and we had many conversations about Mr. Black's not going to be neutral.
Right.
I'm not a shock jock. I don't do gore or show images of gore. I'm not out there to try and be this. I feel these things, so I don't want you to take that away. We've got a lot of people who feel the same. And like you said earlier, it's relieving for some people. I know it is for me. When I listen to Jules over at This Is Monsters, and he'll be in the middle of something. He'll be like, yeah, right. What a fucking idiot. And I'm like, yes, I feel you. That's real. That's not a robot.
Right.
He felt that. He said that. He felt it, You'll hear it on Dreading as well. Just the disbelief and stuff in his voice. And that, I feel that, there's room for more of that in the true crime community.
I think one of the things that connects audiences these days a lot more intensely with independent creators is that sense of, I'm not listening just to a corporate product. I'm not listening to a robot or just a script. There's somebody behind the scenes here that I can relate to, that is as shocked as I am and everything else. I mean, there's definitely a place for straight on journalistic professionalism, but when it comes down to especially mostly like one man shop or one person shop shows and everything, having that sense of it's what the parasocial kind of connection you have with someone, where that they're feeling what you're feeling. They're not just reciting a script. They're actually living in the moment of having to deal with that information. And that really humanizes, obviously, the presenter, but also, makes you feel like this is somebody that I get on the same mental wavelength with, which I think is a benefit that a lot of overproduced or corporate material doesn't necessarily do. And that's why I was surprised that Law&Crime, which is more journalistic, let's say, in corporate, when I saw the cross posting of your stuff, I was really kind of like, do they know who they're working with? Are they
Yeah,
sure
I was
about this?
too.
Does this? Yeah, yeah.
I was kind of like, I mean, it's funny you say it like that. I actually, my main contact there, the guy I deal with the most, that runs the YouTube channel, um, just we have kind of a direct link between each other. Anytime we need something, we can help each other out. But I must have sent him 2 or 3 emails that were they were centered around the idea that Law&Crime, they've heard this whole video,
Hmm.
add in link, I'm like, do they know that I said this?
Right,
Do
right.
they know that I said pit bull castration about Fidel Lopez? They know that part, right? Yeah, they know I'm calling him ratty Richard Huckle, and
Yeah,
they
exactly.
saw that. They were okay with it. So and now I mean now things have now with me being involved with Law&Crime, nothing's changed, only in the sense of that we probably would censor the F word, or we would
Sure.
censor the word, the R word, because we have to. I mean, you could say, "Oh, you're not standing for your free speech," and I'm all for free speech, but the fact is, at the minute, is that video is going to get more reach if I don't
Yeah.
say that simple word, and it's not much to
Yeah.
ask to cut that out to make sure that video reaches more people, especially with a case like Baby Brianna. Let me tell you
Yeah.
how that went. Our Baby Brianna case, 3 monsters and a baby, that
Hmm.
came out, and that was skyrocketing, and it passed. It got green, but there are some photos of the bruising on Baby Brianna. There's no gore, nothing like that. I don't show that, but
Hmm.
there were photos of the bruising. I had blurred out everything except a small circle to show precisely where the bruising or the bite mark was. Um,
Hmm.
but as soon as YouTube age restricted it, it was still green for a bit and then went yellow about an hour later. And
Yeah.
the graph just went like this, bam.
Yes.
And that's, I mean, it barely
Yeah.
reached
There's a
over
there.
100,000 views, and it was climbing. Now, Law&Crime, I did a different version for their YouTube channel, and
Hmm.
I took those same photos, but we completely blurred them out, and I just put text over it that YouTube wasn't happy with me
Right.
showing photos of bruises and the bite marks, so we're not going to show them. And theirs stayed green, and theirs is climbing. So
Yeah.
that's how crucial it is. It's not. You might think, oh, you're just because you want the money. You're just looking for the money. It's not so much about the money as it is about the reach of the video, especially if you have a video like the Baby Brianna video, where I want eyes to see it so they can sign a petition that we can maybe get in front of a parole board to keep the
Hmm.
father in that case locked up next year when he comes up for parole. So that video, the bigger reach on it, the better it could do potentially. When you
Yeah.
stop the reach, well, people stop signing the petition. Luckily, we're nearly 11,000 signatures at the minute, but had YouTube let that keep climbing, it might have done even better.
Yeah, just on that note, real quick, and I forgot to say this earlier. Up at the top of the chat box, I have a link to the National Center for Victims of Crime, the donation page. If you guys have a couple of bucks you can spare to throw that direction, I'd appreciate it. If you can't, that's perfectly fine. But you can share that out on social media. That is also appreciated as well.
That's a good thing that
Um,
you. That's a good thing that you share things like that. My Nana Black has been on me about adding this to the videos, and I'm going to do it as well. So I'm glad you did that. That reminded me.
oh yeah, except for one instance where I forgot, I've tried to add it to every one of these shows.
Super.
Yeah, there's a certain level of pragmatism that comes into doing a YouTube video, just because YouTube and the algorithm, as we talked about in the previous episode with Matt Orchard and Dave's Lemonade, when we're talking specifically about making a living on this content and on YouTube or YouTube in general, if not Patreon sidewise, is algorithm is God, and you have to unfortunately kind of tailor your stuff to it. Have you thought about now? You have a Patreon, if I'm not mistaken.
I do. Yes.
Yeah. Do you do unedited, uncensored versions posted there for Patreon subscribers as an alternative for the instances where you have to sort of like tone it down for YouTube's sake?
I don't. I don't put any new true crime content per se out on Patreon.
Mm,
Patreon is a place that gives access to my Discord, and it's just a better insight into my life. We've several rooms in Discord, or I still think rooms like chat rooms,
sure. Oh
but
yeah.
but
I'm old enough.
servers, I guess it's called.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, and I still use lingo and nomenclature from IRC from back in the
Wow.
olden days when I still occasionally, when referring to somebody getting taken out or otherwise, I say they got K-lined, and most people are like, what are you talking about?
Wow.
I'm a fossil, so what can I tell you?
You're bringing up my ICQ lingo here.
I know ICQ, AOL, AIM, and
Hmm.
IRC and Merck and everything else. Yeah, no, I'm old. I'm 44 now, and yeah, I was IRCing back in the 90s, and
Wow.
yeah, so I've always, and that was something I brought up the other day on a stream I did, is in preparation for this show, and my sort of nervousness and everything, because I still have my lizard brain is still situated in the pre-internet days. When I'm watching a
Hmm.
television show, I'm not thinking about I would ever have any contact with, the host of that show. Like, I'm never going to talk
Yeah.
to Robert Stack. I'm never going to talk to the host of the show or anything. So now when I see something like your stuff, which, if you'd put your content in front of me 20 years ago, I would think that this is some professionally, not say it's not professional, but you're talking about like corporate made documentary. This had a team of people making and everything else, and I'd be watching it, and I'd have no notion that I'd ever have the opportunity to talk to anybody having to do with it. And it's just such a, I know this is completely off topic, but this is such a bizarre thing still to this day, that I have such a access to talk to people, creative people who just completely like blew me away. Like, your stuff completely blew me away. When I watched that Richard
Thank you
Huckle
very
video,
much.
I was just like, I mean, and the switcheroo at the beginning, because I thought, okay, I don't want to spoil it for anybody else. You guys go check out Mr. Black's channel, and specifically, at least as the thing that got me into his stuff, the Richard Huckle video, because you threw me for a loop. I think, and you know what it is. And but by the end of it, I was angry and disgusted, of course, but I also felt like I'd really learned something about a story that I hadn't heard of. This is the other thing too, is that most times you watch true crime channels and they're covering, and this isn't any shade on them or anything, but they're covering like what just happened or some big name story, but it's always these things that seem to fly under the radar or are in different countries that don't make the mainstream American news necessarily, that just, I mean, yeah, and okay, I can't help myself. I know it's a weird thing to say, but do you ever feel guilty finding entertainment in things that are terrible? I mean, that's sort of like the paradox of being a quote unquote true crime fan. I always have that sort of moment of, wow, that was a great video. God, that was terrible. Just, do you ever
Yes.
experience that as a viewer or as a creator?
I know for sure that a lot of the people that follow my channel do, because a lot of people will go, man, I don't want to hit the like button. But I
Mm-hmm.
liked the video, but I don't want to hit the like button because of the topic.
Yeah.
And I sympathize with that for sure. I don't feel so much guilty in the entertainment part of it, because I think if you're going to present something, one of these cases, by all means, make it look good. If you
Mm-hmm.
can, if you have access to that, if you have a vision to make it look good, then go for it. I never make jokes about the victims or do any shtick really when it comes to that. The
Sure.
closest you'll get to shtick is me having hurling an insult at someone who deserves it in these stories. But outside of that, I guess I find guilt in my interest in the subject as it is. So
Mm.
whether I'm creating it, or I have less guilt when I'm creating it, I think, because I feel like I'm trying to do it justice in the terms of how it's presented in a cinematic way. So you might say entertainment. I would say cinematic.
Mm.
So I don't, on my channel, my own personal kind of rule of how I'm producing is to make it cinematic in honor of the story, in honor of the victim, whatever you want to say, but make it cinematic, present it well in that medium, and try and maintain the support for the victims in the story. So that's kind of how I get away with it. But my interest in it, my massive hunger for knowledge in this genre sometimes does leave me feeling guilty, or not guilty, but it leaves me wondering why I have this interest. And
Mm-hmm.
I guess I have questioned the morality of that interest before too, but I'm fairly situated on the end of it being fine to show interest in this stuff. It's good
Yeah.
knowledge. I mean, with this next case I'm doing, I mean, we spend a little bit of the end of it talking about ways that you can protect yourself, um,
Right.
and some people don't know. Everybody thinks it won't happen to them. I
Right.
think no one's gonna kick that door down and come in here and have a go at me right now, but that I don't know, and it would be nice to be prepared, especially maybe somebody who doesn't know these things. There's a lot that you can learn from these stories, and it can
Yeah.
affect your life. I've heard people say, "Oh, gee, just watched that documentary, da, da, da," and I remembered, "Hey, I better go lock the door." And then, "Hey, looked on my ring camera last night, and there was a guy trying to get in my house." You know what I mean? And it's like, wow, you know, it's not really paranoid if it played out
Yeah.
and protected
I
you.
think
You
one
know.
of I think one of the saving graces for your content, and a lot more content from true crime creators, as I'm seeing as time goes on, and whether it's intentional or just sort of through osmosis, is the idea. And this was brought up a lot during the when the Jeffrey Dahmer series came out on Netflix, because there was all these sort of philosophical questions like, are you just glorifying the serial killer again, and so on, and this notion of ethical true crime, where you're giving a certain amount of weight and coverage to the victims themselves, and not just glorifying the advent of the suspect or anything. And a lot more channels seem to be doing that, but you've taken that to I think the extra level of really profiling who was lost in these things, or whose lives were rent asunder as a result of this, and showing the damage, because it's a warning, not only of like watch your back and everything else, but to not think of a body count as just a number, that it is
Certainly.
real people behind it. And I think sometimes that doesn't necessarily get focused on as much. Like I say, a lot of creators are doing a much better job with that in recent years, as far as I've seen. But I can tell that's important to you. Now, if you don't want to answer this, by all means just tell me to buzz off. But given the intensity with which you dive into these things, have you yourself, and maybe you mentioned your mother, but have you yourself ever been a victim of crime such that it made it personal for you?
Yes.
Okay, you don't have to tell me the details. I was just wondering if there was a basis for it to begin with.
I've
Um,
spoke about it on a live stream before. I won't go back into those details, obviously. What's the
sure.
point? But yeah, I was a victim as a young child. Probably one of the earliest memories I have. My mother
Mm,
rescued me from that situation. I think I mentioned
okay.
it in. I think I mentioned it in the baby Brianna case as well. I think I
Mm,
mentioned it there.
okay.
Um, uh, but more importantly than that, my mother eh, was an extreme victim. I would
Yes.
say so.
Okay.
That makes it very very personal for me. Um,
Yeah.
for that, yeah. She amazes me how she continues to function and stay bright and push through things because there's other members of my family who've killed themselves because of it. Sorry, I don't know if we can say that. Sorry. Um,
Oh,
but
I see. I don't consider this a job.
oh, okay.
If this, yeah, yeah, no, and I'm hoping this series picks up, but I'm more interested in whatever you have to say. Yeah.
Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah, so my Aunt Sherry took her own life because of I mean, she didn't I don't think she said it in a note that this is why I did this, but it was fairly obvious her whole life she was struggling with that. As other members still are, but my mom has just fared the best, I think, when it comes to the
Yeah.
ladies in the family. There were 6 kids, there were 6 brothers and sisters, so um she just I don't know how she kept her sanity. I certainly don't think I would have. So that's more personal than what I went through, because
Hmm.
she was there with her hunch and her intuition to get back to the location and stop what was happening from happening further. So um, thankfully, thankfully that happened. But
Yeah.
it most certainly makes it personal. I mean, it made it personal in creepy pastas. You know, when I was
Hmm.
writing them, these psychological thrillers could be something about revenge when it came to, a victim maybe getting their revenge in a very, very dark, effed up way. So yeah, it's not just personal and true crime. It just things like that affect your whole life. I mean,
Sure.
you can surely go with the flow and pick yourself up and be strong and live in spite of it and carry those scars like armor. I mean, that's what they are. That's why you have a scar when you do get cut, is because the skin grows back. It's even thicker. It's tougher than it was before. So you can by all means pick yourself up and choose not to be that victim and carry forward. But it'll always be personal when you hear stories
Right.
like that after you've been through something, I think.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. I didn't mean to touch on
Not at
anything
all.
too sensitive.
I
Well,
share these stories of other people, so I damn well better be capable of sharing my own, you know?
fair enough. Well, I might have reached the limit of my interviewing skills here. So, if you don't mind, I'd like to open it up a little bit to some questions from the audience if they have them. So,
Sure
guys, if
thing.
you have any questions directly for Mr. Black, by all means, put them in the chat now. Please be sure to put a few question marks after your question so I know it's for me, because I know you guys have conversations amongst yourselves as well on the chat. And Princess of Hard Rock asks, Mr. Black, I know Mr. Black is busy with his excellent true crime content, but can you ask him if he will ever finish his basement creepypasta?
Whew, that, hello, Princess what'd you say, Princess Hard Rock?
Princess of Hard Rock.
Princess of Hard Rock, yeah. I think I know that name from being in my streams too, or maybe in my comments. Um, yeah, well, that goes back to the earlier part of this interview where, I mean, if you know the basement series that I've done, I gave you 4 episodes and then I left you high and dry, and I must admit that I kind of knew that was going to happen. Um, I'm sorry about that. It's very, very traumatizing for you, I'm sure. But yeah, because of the because of the context of that, and it's something that I wrote. It got hard to do true crime where this there's severe physical trauma and abuse, I guess we can say. Yeah. There's severe realms of that when it comes to true crime. And then for me to go and then jump into fiction and start writing something that is rooted in that too,
Hmm.
I don't know if anybody else can do that. That's fine. I'm not saying that anyone should have a problem with it, but for me, it just hits me in my morals a little bit to do that. So
Mm,
in order to go back and write more fiction or horror content, I think I've got to find a way to do that where it's rooted in supernatural. It's the
mm,
only way I'm gonna sit at peace in myself to tell people's horrible stories and then go and write horror stories, is that
right.
I really have to have that fine line there. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just for me, that's just how it is. I mean, I have no problem. I could watch a horror film and then watch a true crime documentary or the other way around. But when it comes to creating it, I'm just so scared that I will write something up. I'll put out a story that's fiction on this channel. People will come back and go, "Hey, that reminds me of uh,
Right.
Colleen Stan or something," and I go, "Oh my
Hmm.
God, I covered that story." And it does.
Yeah.
I
There's
don't
got
want
to
to
be
have that
some
problem.
yeah, got to be some intentional installation between the two worlds, or else,
Sure.
yeah, like I say, you risk.
But I
Uh,
appreciate that you liked, The Basement is Strictly Off Limits. I will vow to you that I will finish that. I will. I kinda have a little plan for it, so, I will finish that one, but as opposed to writing more like it, I'll have to kinda alter the destination of those
all
stories in the
right.
end.
Simon Willikins, not quite a question, but something that I have to awfully weigh in on. As a comic nerd, scribes should know that Latvia is the home country of Doctor Doom. Actually, that's Latveria. It is a fictional country, similar to, obviously, in spelling and name of Latvia, but no. Sorry, Simon. You've challenged me, and I won. So there you go.
Haha. Finish him.
Mwahaha. Let's see. Where there was one else from. Where did it go? Miranda Stone had another one, and I think I must have missed it. Oh, there it is. Did it, okay, that's weird. It's not showing up. Oh, did chat jump? There it is. Sorry about that. Mr. Black, why is your Patreon so cheap? Yeah, why are you such a cheap date, Mr. Black?
I because I don't plan to like put extra content per se when it comes to Patreon.
Hmm.
I put it at $1. It gets you into the Discord, where there's a bunch of other stuff on Discord you can see. I used to be a full-time musician, so you get a much deeper dive into my personal life over there. I even do some cooking and post the photos of what I've made and For a while, we were even doing like games on a Sunday. So we would have done like one Sunday a month. We would play. I can't even remember the games. It's one of those Steam games where everyone can play. It's
Sure.
multi. It was
Yeah.
fun. It was really fun. We had a blast doing it. I do want to get back into that. We've just been constructing a lot, but the Patreon basically is at $1 because I want to give anyone who the most absolute possibility of accessing that that Discord and stuff like that. So $1, if enough people were to jump in at $1 like that, I wouldn't have to I wouldn't worry at all about what the content makes in terms of ads on YouTube. So I put that out there for those who can. And as I said,
Mhm.
I don't plan to put like extra hidden documentaries there, so I don't raise it any
Sure.
higher, you know.
Tardigrade. I'll try to do that in case the algorithm hits me for anything. Thank you, Justin, for sharing. You've made it easier for other survivors like me to open up to others and start healing from childhood, SA, and abuse. Most of my adult relationships followed the, hold on, same pattern, and I understand the dynamics of it now and build my armor, like you said.
Yeah, you know what? I've seen your comments as well. Yeah, I agree. It's a little bit of a there's a little communal thing when it comes to sharing a story, and then a lot of you guys will send me emails or leave comments for me about your own stories, and it just shocks me that
Mhm.
you can get so much relief out of the work that I do as well. That's nothing makes me feel more humbled. So I appreciate your comment and question.
Miranda Stone again. Mr. Black, would you ever consider a content creator meetup? Well, given your location on the globe, that'd probably be more heavy lifting than some. But yeah, like Dave's Lemonade and Matt Orchard are now practically neighbors. I've seen other people have like Coffee House Crime meet up with other content
Cool.
creators. Would you ever have a little powwow with some of your fellow true crime denizens?
Not just creators. I would love creators. But actually fans. When I was in
Mm-hmm.
London, I actually was setting up a little quick meet with some of the ones out of my Discord.
Oh, nice.
And then I lost my passport, so I ended up in the embassy for about 7 hours that day, and that kind of put a ridge in the plan. So yeah, but it's something. Yeah, but on both sides of that, yeah, I would love to do that. That would be great. But I'm still like I'm kind of in awe of like I think Dave's Lemonade's amazing. You know.
Oh yeah, most people
Um,
here too do. I like I
so
got quite a contingent of Dave's Lemonade fans around.
So when I meet other creators, I watch a lot of these guys, you know.
Hmm.
Even when I try not to, it's like okay, I'll watch this one. I just won't do this case, you know.
Right, right.
Misery
Yeah.
Machine or Tend to Life or any of these any of these channels that I know and follow. You know, I try and kind of steer clear, or at least if I'm gonna do for me, if I'm gonna do a case at all, there has to be something I can add to it or present it in a way that
Mm,
maybe makes it well, you know, maybe someone would be glad they saw my version of it because it
right.
opened up new details or something. So for me, I can't just I can't do Ted Bundy, you know? Like
Yeah, when I was working on my little experiments, I was trying to find cases that either weren't very high profile or that were reminiscent of something that I'd seen but didn't know the details of, so I could learn something along the way. I think my third video is probably the most comprehensive video on that case so far. I haven't seen anybody else do it,
okay.
so hopefully that's the case. But yeah, one of the things that I'm really happy about this series so far, when obviously the stars align, is getting the opportunity to have different creators interact and meet each other and talk and discuss these things, because I don't. It seems like that doesn't happen very often, or not to a degree where it's like very substantive. And I really, really wanted to have Dave on here today so you could meet him and talk to him, because I know you said as soon as I emailed you and I said, hey, I've interviewed these guys before, it's like, I love Dave's Lemon. They're like, oh, great.
Yeah.
Dave's Lemon, I got to say, just real quick, and in case he's listening at some point, and I've told him this before offline, but I'll just say it out loud. Just about every time that I've contacted and been responded to by a content creator regarding this series, as soon as I mention Dave's Lemonade, almost to one, they say, I love that guy. Dave's Lemonade, I think, is the unifying force of all true crime content at this stage of the game.
Yeah.
I really do. I really think so.
Yeah, Dave's great.
Um, yeah.
And from the start, I mean, I think I think I've been watching Dave. I can't remember. How old's Dave's channel now?
Oh, got 2, maybe on to 3 years. Somebody in the chat's going to
Yeah.
correct me. Yeah, I started
I think
watching.
I think Dave started that channel just before I started mine, maybe? I'm coming up on 2 years now, so
Yeah, I think it was contemporary because he his first stuff was the Predator commentaries, which I'd seen other
yeah,
people.
that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah. I'd seen other people do them, and I mentioned this to
Yes.
him when I interviewed him. I said, of all the other guys that have ever covered the Predator stuff, at least in his early videos, he always started out each video by saying, I want to, and I'm paraphrasing, I want to be remembered, this only represents a moment in someone's life and does not necessarily reflect all of everything that they are. And I just thought that was such a interesting sort of cautionary preamble for the audience when looking at something like this. And it just really stood
Mhm.
out to me, aside from the fact that he has, as I've said, a golden voice for the
Yes.
subject matter. But yeah, no, I've been watching Dave since I think just at the beginning of his channel. And like I said, yours early-ish on for that one. And I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to talk to you guys and find out and just be sort of a super fan, but also have the opportunity to find out how you do your process and how your mind works and everything.
Oh, well, thank
Um,
you. I appreciate the interest in that, and my process from the start has been very open to anyone, I
mhm.
have creators email me and ask how I do this or how you make them blink or how do
Yeah,
I,
real quick, there was I remember hearing or seeing one of your videos some kind of pushback on you animating those still photos to make them feel alive, like that was disrespectful or creepy or something. And I mean, it's oftentimes I have to sort of stop for a second because it's done so well. It's like, is this a video clip or is this this must be an animation? And it gets there, but it adds that extra bit of, oomph to the production. I know this is a complete, I should have asked this earlier or anything. What exactly has been the overall reaction to you animating people's faces on your videos?
well, I actually did a poll, which it's kind of weird to do a poll on your community tab because you couldn't be more biased, right? So,
Hmm.
but it's still your audience, so in a sense, you can get a better feel for what people may or may not want. And the poll was to do with animating the faces or not, and it was pretty damn well lopsided. Uh, everybody wanted to keep doing it. Some people said it was even the reason that they enjoyed the channel so much. It caught them off guard. It was creepy, yeah,
Yeah,
but caught them off guard. And there might be like a photo of someone that we don't have video of, and then you
right.
get a chance to see that person blinking and moving, and it just makes it real for me.
Yeah.
What I have started doing is I use that a lot less. Um, I use it a lot less than I used to, for sure.
Hmm.
I'm very careful when I think about a victim if I'm going to use it. You'll mainly
Sure.
find it in the intro now. You'll mainly find it in the intro clips. So I put quite a lot of time into the intros. That's the part where I'm like, Tom, I'll handle this. This is this is what I like to do. There's setting the mood of the case basically. That's why the
Yeah.
intros are about a minute long. And some people say that's too long, but you know who cares?
Kiever Dam, no message, but thank you so much for your generosity and support. Kiever Dam, one of my prime moderators, if not the den mother of the chat, oftentimes too. Thank you, Kiever Dam. Um, yeah, so I've hit the limit of my interview skills. I think. I hope I haven't disappointed too much. Oh, real quick, in human form. Thank you so much. Happy National Iced Tea Day, Scribbles. Thank you for me. In human form, actually, his first video, if I'm not mistaken, his first true crime video was on Israel Keys, and he actually lives in Alaska and has a personal
Wow,
connection to. I don't want to screw this. Samantha Koenig, was it Samantha?
Samantha Koenig.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Samantha Koenig. He had a personal connection to one of the victims,
Wow, I would
and
love to
he
have a
was.
conversation about that case.
Yeah, see now, this is the thing. Okay, so here's, if this hasn't been too torturous for you, would you be willing to come back onto a future show on a panel when I could have a couple of you guys on and talk about stuff?
Absolutely, of course.
I can't wait. Man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on and making the time. I know that this is your day off and everything, and I know a lot of people out there who either haven't heard of you will definitely get interested in you now, and those of you out there who already know about Mr. Black, please share his stuff. All the links in the description below. Um, is there anything I didn't cover, anything you wanted to talk about before I completely, blow the works here?
Not at all. It's just a pleasure to be on your show. Thanks for taking interest. Yeah, of course I'll come back again.
I appreciate it so much. Everybody, again, take a look at the top of the chat box for the link to the National Center of Victims of Crime. If you can donate, please do. If you can't, please share that link out. If you like this kind of thing, I really hope to turn this series into something bigger than what it is. And really, you guys are my best algorithm, because YouTube certainly doesn't help out all that much. So if you like this kind of thing, share it out there. If there's a true crime content creator out there that you think would be a good fit for the show, let them know the show exists. I try to, tweet and cold call as many true crime creators as I have, and I've got a couple other people lined up for the near future. But I appreciate your guys' support in any way that you can give it, as well to the creators that appear on here. Also, send some love out to Dave's Lemonade so that he gets feeling better soon, and as well, Stay Awake, because scheduling things and all that. I will have them on again in the relatively near future if things line up. But Mr. Black Pasta, anything you want to plug real quick? Any shout outs you want to give before we wrap up?
I'd like to say thank you to you. I don't get on Twitter much, but every time I'm on, you've retweeted or quoted tweet or liked a tweet, and I know you do that for a lot of us out there, and that shows a lot of heart. I really appreciate that. I do see it.
Oh, you're welcome. I appreciate that. I'm more than happy to. Like I say, as being on YouTube as long as I have, I know that one of the best ways to get the word out there is just let people know you exist. And by the way, guys, if there's a content creator out there that you like, whether it's me, Mr. Black, anybody else, any other genre, if you like their stuff, share their stuff. And when you can, tag them in your tweet or your Facebook or whatever else to let them know that you did so. Because I tell you what, they appreciate it when you do it. And personally, I make sure to thank everybody who does, because I can't tell you how much that helps out, and also makes me feel like I'm not just wasting my time in front of a microphone those days. But everyone, thank you so much for joining us for this. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone here is so well behaved. You have very little to do. Everybody who donated, either to myself or to the National Center of Victims of Crime, thank you guys so much for your generosity. Really do appreciate it. Mr. Black, again, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I hope you stick around for a couple minutes after I close up shop here so we can have some words. And everyone, have a great rest of your Saturday. Have a great rest of your weekend. I hope the week ahead of you treats you well. I hope you're all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.